Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome to another Crafting with Curly Cues and Tupelo Designs LLC video. So this is my 10th day of my Handmade holiday series, as well as the Tupelo Designs LLC design team project. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to use some temporary adhesive from Tombow, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the back of this watercolor panel. So this is a piece of watercolor paper. It is Canson XL cold press watercolor paper, and it is slightly larger than an A2 card. And I'm going to take this beautiful snowflake stencil that I got in my Tupelo Designs LLC December design team package. Sorry, I'm stuttering tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and use some Post-it tape to just tape that down over the top of this panel. So I am going to trim this panel up when I'm done. So I made it larger than the front of a card on purpose. And now I have a bunch of different colors of distress inks in the beautiful colors of the rainbow. And I'm going to take my distress ink distresser tool, and I'm going to dab that color on over the top of this stencil. So this stencil, as you saw, was super detailed. So rather than rub the inks on, I am just going to dab straight down so that I don't end up bending any of the stencil. And I do at one place actually kind of bend it, but it's just a really delicate stencil, so I'm trying to be really nice and gentle with it. But the ink still goes on beautifully because those distress inks just blend so well. And I did go back over some of the spots a couple times where the colors kind of went over each other and kind of blend those back in. So I am using a bunch of different colors. I'll list all the colors over at my blog, so if you're interested in those, go ahead and check it out. But I think this turned out gorgeous in the colors of the rainbow. And then when I peel off this stencil, I was like beyond elated with the results of this. So I am super stoked at how this card came out. It's a completely non-traditional Christmas card, but check this out. You take that stencil off and it is just gorgeous with that white snowflake pattern underneath that beautiful vibrant rainbow. Love it. I just think it turned out so pretty. So now that that is done, I'm just going to get my panel out of the way and I'm just going to clean my stencil with a baby wipe. I'm just going to gently dab it and then I'm going to put it back in the package and wait for next time. So here is my card base, and I am taking my giant tub of multimedia matte that I also got in my design team package, and I am going to take some glitter, and I am going to glitz up the front of this card. So I am just going to use one of these little spongy brushes that I like to buy at the Dollar Tree and then throw away when I'm done with them, and just put a layer of that multimedia matte around the outside of this card base. So I'm going to end up cutting that beautiful rainbow snowflake panel down a little bit smaller than the card base. So I want a little strip of the yummy Christmassy glitter to show all around that panel. So clearly this card is non-traditional, but I did want to make sure there was some red and green in there to kind of throw you back to Christmas a little bit. I don't know what inspired me. Well, I do know what inspired me. Okay, let's start over. So in my design team package, and I'll show you later, I got this beautiful tropical birds stamp set from My Favorite Things, and I just fell in love with it. And I really wanted to use it on a Christmas card. And so, of course, I thought of that song, the Mole Kaliki Maka. I don't sing, so sorry about that. But that was the inspiration for this song, and I was like, or this card, and I was like, wouldn't it be fun to create a tropical Christmas card? So I just really wanted to try that, and I really wanted to use this beautiful stencil. So that was kind of where this inspiration came from. So just a little background there for you. This panel is from a die cut from Mama Elephant, and it is a really fun die cut. It's called the Basic Set. It's got this really pretty scalloped rectangle, and then it cuts out a nice stitched rectangle that fits right inside there, and that's what I'm going to do my main panel on. So you'll see that in a little bit. So now that I'm done putting that glitter on, I'm going to set that aside to dry and let it just kind of dry on its own. And while that is drying, I have taken my panel and I trimmed it down to slightly smaller than the front of an A2 card, and I'm just going to sprinkle some water drops on there. So this is plain water. I'm just squirting it in my hand and then I'm flicking it over my panel, and this just creates a really fun effect with the distress inks where wherever the water sits, it's going to kind of bleach out that spot when you dab it up with a paper towel. So I let that sit for a second just to soak up some of that water, and now I'm just dabbing it off with a paper towel. I will warn you, I've never really done this with this many different colors, and it did kind of transfer onto some of the white because the color was on my paper towel. So if I were to do this again, I would pay a little bit more attention to my paper towel and make sure that I don't transfer that color, but it's all good. I mean, it still looks beautiful. So this is my white picket fence distress spray stain that I also got in my design team package, and I've been using it on everything because I think a little bit of white splatter makes everything look that much better. So I'm really creating like a tropical snowstorm here. So by putting the water drops and now these white drops on top, I've just created this really fun background that's like a tropical snowstorm. I just love it. So here's that really fun stamp set from My Favorite Things that was also in my design team package, and I just thought these birds were super, super cool. So you could see earlier that I took the Milo's ABCs from Lawn Fawn and I created my own sentiment, and I'm kind of going to put this panel, this watercolor panel, on a little bit wonky on the front of my card. So I'm kind of holding it up trying to figure out like how's it going to fit and where is this bird going to fit on the panel to make sure that when I stamp it, I get it in the right spot. I'm using some black archival ink from Ranger to go ahead and stamp this because I am going to use my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, which are watercolor, so I don't want that ink to bleed at all when I do that. And then I stamped the bird on an additional piece of watercolor paper also, and that is because I'm going to cut him out and kind of pop him off the front of the card panel. So this is just another little piece of foliage that comes in the stamp set, and I'm stamping it out of the other side of the bird. And it's okay that it doesn't line up perfectly because I am going to cut that image out and put it on top, so it's going to cover up that little bit of discrepancy. But I just didn't want him to be floating on the other end of that, so I just used that little piece of leaf there. So now I'm going to combine a few stamp sets. So that was the Bah Humbug stamp set from Lawn Fawn. And what I'm taking out of that stamp set is this little strand of Christmas lights. So I am wanting to turn this tropical bird into a tropical Christmas bird. So I am using these little Christmas lights to kind of stamp through that branch that he's standing on so that it's like he's decorated his little branch for Christmas. And again, anything that's on top of the bird is going to be covered up when I use that second bird that I'm going to color. So I'm not being super careful on top of the bird, and it's actually pretty cool because it's allowing me a little bit of leeway in my design to go ahead and stamp some things a little goofy on top of that bird spot. So now that those lights have been stamped in there, I'm taking the Toboggan Together stamp set from Lawn Fawn, and it's got a cute little Santa hat that just happens to fit perfectly on the head of this lovely little parrot. So I'm going to stamp that on the extra piece of cardstock as well, and I'm going to color and cut that out to go on my cute little bird. So this is just a fun way to take the stamp sets that you have and stretch them and use them for something that they are not meant for. And it really allows you to stretch your creative muscles as well. So I already prepped my sentiment with the Milo's ABCs, and I'm just going to go ahead and stamp that right at the bottom there. And then I'm going to stamp a K again because there were not enough K's in my stamp set to make this whole sentiment. So I'm just going to pop that right in there. I had to look up on the internet how to spell this. I knew this was a song, but I, first of all, was like, is that actually how you say that? Or is it just a song? And it turns out that it is something that they say in Hawaii for Merry Christmas. So I had to figure out how to spell it to get it on here. So hopefully it is spelled correctly and that my Google didn't lie to me. So I apologize if it's not. But so anyway, now I'm diving into the coloring. So I am just going to color my parrot in some really fun tropical colors. And the one that's actually on the front of the card base panel, I'm just going to fill in with some plain color. That's just so that if you kind of see underneath it when the card tilts, it's not just plain white. But I'm going to do all my fun shading on the bird that I'm going to actually cut out. So the Santa hat gets to be red also. I did some shading there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and make his little chest area here green. And so you can see on the card base one, I just filled it in real quick with just one color. And then here I'm going to go ahead and use my darker color and put some shading around the outside and then come in with my lighter green and pull that color into the middle and then go back in and just add a little bit more shadow with the darker one. I would caution you from going back too many times with these markers because your paper can start to pill up after a little while. I don't have too much trouble with this Canson XL watercolor paper. I think it works really great with these markers. But if I go back too many times, it does get a little fussy on me. But these markers blend absolutely beautifully. I love them. They kind of make everybody look like a ridiculous professional colorist. Like I'm going pretty fast. I mean, obviously I sped this up really, really fast so I could get it all in here for you. But even in real life, I'm coloring pretty quickly because they just do the work for you, which is awesome. Because sometimes, you know, you just don't have time to sit and do all the perfect little coloring. Like this card had a lot of elements to it that I wanted to work into the design, and so the coloring was really important, but it wasn't like, I had a lot of other stuff to do too, so I wanted the coloring to go quickly. So these markers are perfect for that because they're just really really great with the blending, and they just make everything look really nice. So for his beak, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple different shades. I really like the way that the shading turned out on his beak with these two different yellow tones. I think it looks really pretty. I do have the 60 count of these markers, and you can get them in a bunch of different size sets, and they are available over at TupeloDesignsLLC, so I will be sure to link that over at my blog so that you can check out the zig markers. They also have a few of them individually, so if you were not wanting to commit to a whole set but you wanted to try these markers out, you could buy just a couple of individual ones and see how you like them. And I promise you're going to like them, trust me. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to color the leaves that he's sitting on, and I wanted them to be a little bit different green than what he is so that they kind of stand out a little bit. So I'm using some olive tones on this larger leaf, and then for the palm tree looking leaves that are behind him there, I'm going to just come in with some different greens and kind of make it all look a little bit different. I am coloring right over the top of all those little Christmas bulbs because I'm going to come back in later with my Sakura Stardust Jelly Roll pens and color in those Christmas bulbs, and those pens are pretty opaque and they're going to go on over this color pretty well. So I'm not stressing too much about making sure that I don't color over the top of those. So there is a little flower in that foliage. It kind of gets covered up, but I did want to go ahead and color it pink when I could. So now you can see I've colored in those bulbs with my Stardust pens, and you can totally still see them over the top of the foliage, and then I'm going to later put some glossy accents on them to make them pop even further. So I think it was a fun little touch to make this a Christmas card. So now I have fussy cut out those images that I'm going to pop up, and I'm using my black soot distress marker to go ahead and line the edges. This is a really great trick to make it look like you cut these out perfectly. And I always go from the back, and that way if I slip with my marker, I'm going to make a mark on the back and not the front, and I won't have to recolor my images. So just a little tip for that. So now that that is done, it is time to start assembling this card. So this got a little messy, as I'm sure you can imagine, because this glitter is pretty much everywhere. So I will tell you guys this little glitter trick that I did didn't work quite as well as I would have wanted, and it was completely my fault, not the process's fault, because I didn't put quite enough multi-matte medium down, and then I was just being really impatient. It probably should have dried a little bit more on its own. So you can see the glitter kind of coming off there, but if you gave it a little bit more time to dry, I don't think that it would do that. So I'm coming back in with the Festive Berries, which is the red that I used in my rainbow, and I'm just kind of lining the outside of that panel a little bit, just so that it has a little bit of an edge and a border around it, just ever so slightly. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my ATG gun and just put some adhesive all over the back of this panel. I want to make sure this is nice and sticky because I am going to be sticking it on the card base, which has all that glitter around the outside, and glitter does not like to stick to things, and things do not like to stick to glitter. So I wanted to put lots of extra stickum to make sure that this panel stays where I put it. So I really like the way that red glitter border pops outside that rainbow. I love the colors in this card. This card is totally channeling Laura Basson. I don't know if you guys watch Laura's channel, but she is phenomenal, and she uses rainbows like all the time, and she always makes rainbows look elegant and classy and fun all at once. So I was trying to channel my inner Laura Basson rainbow with this card. So now I'm going to go ahead and apply some ATG to the back of the panel that I've assembled with my green border and my fun watercolored bird, and I'm going to put this on the front of the card kind of at an angle. It's going to put my sentiment right across the bottom, and then I'm just going to come in with my scissors from the back of the card, flip that over, and I'm going to trim off all the excess here. So I preferred to do it this way rather than try to cut it ahead of time because I would not have gotten it right. So it's just easier for me to stick it on there and then cut it down to size, and that way I know that it's perfect. You could absolutely try to get all your measurements correct and get this cut before you put it on the front of your card, whichever way you're more comfortable with. This was the way that I preferred to do it. So it worked out pretty darn good, I'd have to say, considering I eyeballed most of it. So now you see when I put that other bird on top, that image starts to look a heck of a lot better. You don't have all that light bulb jumble going on at his feet and stuff, and he looks really cool. So I'm just using some foam squares to pop him up a little bit. Got to cut a little teeny tiny one to put a little bit of support underneath his little tail there. And then I'm going to peel off the back and pop that up. I am going to also cut some super teeny foam squares for his Santa hat, because if he's popped up, then his Santa hat has to be popped up too. So I'm going to stick those on there, and then I will come back in with my zig glue pen, and put just the tiniest bit of glue on the rim of that hat so that it sticks to his little parrot head when I put it down. So I really like the way this card kind of transforms when you pop that bird with, I mean, he's got all the cool shading, and then it covers up, like I said, all that jumbly mess. I think it just looks really neat. Plus it adds that fun dimension, which is the whole point anyway. So here comes the Santa hat, and this is when it really goes from being a tropical Wonderland card to, bam, tropical Christmas Wonderland card. So I really like the way that that little Santa hat fits his little head. I think it looks super cute. So as you can see, I put a spattering of Pretty Pink Posh sparkling clear sequins on there. I've got all 4 sizes, 10, 8, 6, and 4 millimeter. And then I did put glossy accents over the top of all those little Christmas light bulbs so that it made them look like nice shiny lights. And then you guys knew I was going to do it, right? I'm coming in with my Wink of Stella because you have to. I mean, you have to finish every card with Wink of Stella. So I am making sure in between each color that I do scribble my Wink of Stella off on some paper on the side so that I don't transfer that color, because it is pretty watery. It's going to reactivate the watercolor in those Zig Clean Color brushes, and it's going to pick up on the tip of that Wink of Stella. So just make sure that you don't cross-contaminate your colors and that you scribble that off on the side. So last but not least is my Signo Uniball white gel pen, and I'm going to put a little bit of detail on his wings, and I'm going to add a nice little fleck of reflection in his eye. And then I'm also going to put some little highlights, that's the word I was looking for, highlights on his beak so that it looks like the sun is nice and shiny on his beak there. And then you know what? This guy is done. So Merry Christmas to you all. I hope you enjoyed this non-traditional Christmas card here. Thanks so much for watching. Please hit subscribe, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up. I love to hear from you guys. I'm going to list all the supplies over at my blog. I've got links to Tupelo as well as other Tupelo Designs LLC videos below, so go ahead and check that out. Thanks, guys.